My beloved child. The moment your photo touched that psychic's table, the entire conversation changed. The third party and your special person's ex had walked into that room expecting confirmation of something they already believed about you. They thought your picture would reveal weakness, uncertainty, maybe even prove that your connection with this special person was nothing more than a temporary chapter. But the psychic stared at your photo longer than anyone expected. 10 seconds passed. Then 20. She moved it closer, studied your expression, and suddenly asked a question that neither of them was prepared to answer. Does this person know how much influence they've had without even trying? The room went quiet. Your special person's ex immediately became uncomfortable, because that was not why they had come. They wanted reassurance that you could simply be forgotten. Instead, the psychic was seeing something completely different. Don't skip, because what she noticed next was the detail that caused the third party to realize this visit might have been a terrible mistake. The psychic didn't begin talking about appearances, money, or anything obvious. She pointed to your photograph and said there was something about you that people consistently misunderstood. You could appear quiet while noticing everything. You could step away without creating a scene, yet somehow your absence became louder than your presence had ever been. And according to her reading, that was exactly what had happened with your special person. The ex tried to interrupt, insisting there had to be another explanation, but the psychic kept returning to one strange observation. Your special person had apparently been comparing every new connection to a feeling they associated with you. Not because you were perfect. Not because some magical force controlled them. But because something about the way you entered their life had created a standard they couldn't easily erase. Then came the first real shock. The psychic looked directly at the third party and asked, "Why are you both so focused on this person if you truly believe they don't matter?" Neither answered. Stay till the end, because that silence exposed far more than either of them intended. That question completely shifted the atmosphere. The psychic pushed your photograph back across the table and calmly explained what she believed they were actually afraid of, not that you were secretly chasing your special person, but that you didn't need to. Your influence seemed to remain even while you were somewhere else living your own life. That realization hit the ex hardest. They had expected to hear that time would erase you, yet they were being confronted with the possibility that their own obsession with replacing your memory had only made your importance more obvious. Then the psychic noticed something written on the back of your photo, a tiny detail someone had added before arriving. She read it once, looked at the ex, and her expression changed instantly. "Wait," she said. "You didn't tell me this." The third party turned toward the ex, confused. Apparently, one crucial piece of the story had been deliberately hidden from everyone in that room, and it involved something your special person had said about you only days earlier. Something huge is waiting for you, because once that hidden statement comes out, the real reason they brought your photograph to the psychic will finally begin to unravel. What happened next was the moment the ex realized they had lost control of the conversation. The words written behind your photograph weren't random notes. They were a sentence your special person had reportedly said when someone recently asked why your name still affected them so deeply. "There are things about this person I understood too late." The psychic read that sentence again, slowly, and suddenly everything about the visit looked different. The third party turned toward the ex because this information had never been mentioned before. Why hide something so important? The ex tried to dismiss it, claiming those words meant nothing, but the psychic wasn't convinced. She asked when your special person had said them. No immediate answer came. That hesitation was enough. Something had happened recently, something neither visitor wanted brought into the open. Don't skip, because the next question exposed exactly why your photograph had been brought there in the first place. Instead of continuing the reading, the psychic placed your photo between them and asked one simple question: which one of you is actually afraid this person is coming back into their life? The third party immediately looked toward the ex. That reaction said everything. This visit had never really been about discovering who you were. They already knew enough about you to feel unsettled. They had come hoping someone would tell them that your connection with your special person was finished forever. But days earlier, your special person had apparently done something completely unexpected. During a conversation about the future, your name came up, and rather than avoiding it, your special person defended you. They corrected something unfair that had been said about you. Then they admitted there was one memory involving you they still couldn't forget. The ex heard about that conversation afterward, and suddenly old insecurity returned. That was why your photograph ended up on the psychic's table. But there was still one missing piece. What memory had your special person refused to let go? The psychic seemed less interested in predicting anything than in pointing out what was already happening right in front of her. She told them that their biggest mistake was treating you like competition when your real significance came from something much harder to compete with, an unresolved truth. Your special person hadn't simply remembered you, they had begun reconsidering what actually happened between you. Stay till the end. Because according to what the ex finally admitted, your special person had recently gone back through an old conversation and discovered that something they once blamed on you may never have been your doing at all. The third party froze. That detail hadn't been shared with them either. Then the psychic asked who originally gave your special person the information that caused the misunderstanding. Nobody spoke. She looked from the third party to the ex and immediately noticed their expressions change. And that was when the real reason for their panic became impossible to ignore. One of the people sitting at that table knew exactly where that old misunderstanding had started, and your special person was getting dangerously close to discovering the truth. That silence lasted only a few seconds, but it changed everything in the room. The third party finally looked away, while the ex became unusually defensive, insisting the old misunderstanding had nothing to do with them. But the psychic noticed the contradiction immediately. Nobody had accused the ex directly, so why were they already trying to clear themselves? She leaned forward and asked them to explain exactly how your special person first heard the story that created distance between you. Suddenly, details began slipping out. Months earlier, a private conversation had apparently been repeated, but important words were removed, others were twisted, and your intentions were presented completely differently. Your special person believed that version because it came from someone they trusted at the time. Now they had found the original context. And there was one sentence in that old conversation proving you had been misunderstood from the beginning. Don't skip. Because the person who changed that story was much closer to this psychic visit than anyone expected. The third party tried changing the subject, but the psychic stopped them with another question: who benefited when these two people became distant? Nobody needed to answer immediately. The pattern was becoming obvious. After the misunderstanding, your special person became confused and emotionally withdrawn, creating an opening for other voices to influence their decisions. The X suddenly had another opportunity to stay relevant. The third party gained more control over what your special person heard about you. Yet neither expected your special person to eventually question the original story. That was the development they were now trying to understand. Your photo wasn't brought to the psychic because they wanted to know your future. They wanted to know whether your special person was discovering the past. And then the X admitted something even more revealing. Your special person had recently asked to see an old message that everyone assumed had disappeared. Someone still had a copy. Stay till the end, because what was preserved inside that message could completely change how your special person sees you. The psychic stared at them and said something neither visitor wanted to hear. Whatever happened next wouldn't depend on predictions, it would depend on what your special person discovered for themselves. That realization made the third party visibly uneasy. They had spent so much time worrying about who you really are, yet the bigger question was becoming who had been honest about you. Then the X revealed why the old message mattered so much. It contained the exact words you had written before everything changed, including a detail your special person had never been shown. You hadn't been walking away from them in the way they were told. According to that preserved conversation, you had actually been trying to prevent a misunderstanding from growing larger. Something huge is waiting for you, because your special person had already requested that message, and someone had agreed to send it. But just before the psychic visit began, the third party received a notification on their phone. They looked at the screen, immediately turned it face down, and said nothing. The psychic noticed. So did the X. And whatever appeared on that screen seemed to confirm one shocking possibility: your special person may have already seen the message. The moment that phone turned face down, the X knew something had changed. They reached toward it, demanding to know what had appeared on the screen, but the third party refused to show them. That refusal created a new kind of tension because, until then, the two had arrived with the same purpose. Now one of them was clearly hiding something from the other. The psychic calmly asked whether the notification had come from your special person. No answer. Then the phone vibrated again. This time, the X caught a glimpse of the name before the screen disappeared, and their expression completely shifted. It was your special person. The message contained only a few words, but they were enough to destroy the confidence both visitors had carried into that room. I found the original conversation. Suddenly, nobody cared about predictions anymore. The truth they had been trying to stay ahead of was already moving without them. But what your special person did immediately after reading that conversation was even more unexpected. Instead of confronting anyone right away, your special person became quiet. And that silence worried the X far more than anger would have. They knew your special person well enough to understand what it meant. They were connecting details, replaying old conversations, and remembering every moment when someone had encouraged them to doubt you. The psychic looked at your photograph again and said the most important revelation wasn't some mysterious secret about who you were. It was that your character had apparently survived a story designed to distort it. Your special person was beginning to recognize the difference between what they personally experienced with you and what other people had convinced them to believe. Don't skip. Because then the third party finally admitted why they had become so desperate to arrange this psychic visit. Earlier that same day, your special person had asked a question nobody expected: "Why did you never show me the complete message?" And there was no believable answer ready. That admission caused the ex to stand up abruptly. For the first time, they realized the third party might have known much more about the original misunderstanding than they had revealed. The alliance between them began cracking right there. The ex demanded the full story, while the third party insisted they had only been trying to protect your special person from getting hurt. But the psychic challenged that explanation with one simple observation: protection doesn't require hiding context. Stay till the end, because this is where everything began turning back toward your special person. While those two argued, the phone vibrated for a third time. Another message had arrived. The third party reluctantly picked it up, and their face changed as they read it. Your special person wasn't asking questions anymore. They had made a decision. They wanted to speak directly with the person who still possessed the original messages, without the ex, without the third party, and without anyone interpreting those words for them. But beneath that message was another line, one that nobody in that room expected to see. Your special person had written your name, followed by a question that could change the entire story: how do I reach them? That final question changed the purpose of everything that had happened in the room. The ex stopped arguing. The third party stared at the phone as though refusing to answer could somehow delay what was coming. But your special person had already reached the point where second-hand explanations were no longer enough. They wanted your side directly. The psychic quietly turned your photograph around and noticed another detail: beside the sentence written on the back was a date. When she asked about it, the ex reluctantly admitted that it marked the exact day your special person had first begun questioning the story they were told about you. On that day, they had unexpectedly found an old photograph connected to a memory nobody else knew mattered. It reminded them of something you once did when you had absolutely nothing to gain from doing it. And suddenly, the version of you they had been given stopped matching the person they actually remembered. Don't skip, because that memory was about to expose another missing piece. The ex finally revealed what made that memory so powerful. Long before the misunderstanding, your special person had gone through a difficult moment they rarely discussed with anyone. Most people around them offered opinions, but you had responded differently. You listened. You remembered a small detail they had mentioned once, and later you quietly showed through your actions that you had actually heard them. Your special person had almost forgotten that moment until seeing the old photograph brought everything back. That was when a troubling question appeared in their mind: if you had genuinely cared enough to notice something so small, why would you suddenly behave in the cold, careless way others later claimed? The pieces no longer fit. So they began searching backward through old messages, dates, and conversations. And every answer created another question. Stay till the end, because one particular timestamp revealed that the third party's version of events had a serious problem: they claimed to know something before it had even happened. The psychic didn't need to make another prediction. She simply pointed toward the timeline and asked the third party to explain how they could have repeated information on one date when the conversation supposedly containing that information occurred the following day. The room went completely still. The ex looked at the third party differently now, realizing this wasn't merely a forgotten detail. Something in the story had been presented out of order, and your special person had apparently noticed the exact same contradiction. Then the phone rang. This time it wasn't a message. Your special person was calling directly. The third party hesitated, but the ex insisted they answer. When the call was finally accepted, your special person didn't ask about the psychic. They didn't ask about your photograph. They asked one precise question about that impossible timestamp. The third party tried explaining, but your special person interrupted with information nobody in that room knew they possessed. They had found another person who remembered what happened that day. Something huge is waiting for you, because this new witness didn't just remember the conversation, they remembered who first introduced your name into it, and it wasn't you. The voice on the other end of that call carried none of the uncertainty the third party expected. Your special person had already spoken with the person who remembered that day, and what they learned changed the timeline completely. According to this witness, your name entered the conversation because the third party brought you up first. Even more revealing, they had asked strangely specific questions about your connection with your special person before the supposed misunderstanding ever occurred. That meant their interest in creating distance may have started much earlier than anyone realized. The ex slowly sat back down, suddenly understanding why so many details had never made sense. Then your special person said something that silenced everyone. I'm not calling to argue. I'm calling because I want the truth without anyone editing it for me. The psychic glanced toward your photograph. Don't skip, because the third party's response accidentally revealed something your special person hadn't even asked about yet. Trying to defend themselves, the third party suddenly mentioned a second message, one your special person knew nothing about. The instant those words escaped, the ex turned sharply toward them. Your special person became completely silent on the phone. What second message? They finally asked. There was no easy way back from that question. Apparently, after the original misunderstanding began, you had sent another message attempting to clarify what you actually meant. But your special person never received it. The third party claimed they had only heard about it afterward, yet the ex remembered seeing a screenshot months ago. Now two separate pieces of information were pointing toward the same uncomfortable possibility. Your special person hadn't simply misunderstood you. They may have been prevented from seeing information that could have corrected everything much sooner. The psychic pushed your photograph away from the center of the table and said quietly, "This isn't about discovering who this person is anymore. You're discovering what was hidden from someone else." And then your special person asked where that second message was now. For several seconds, nobody answered. Then the ex made a choice the third party clearly hadn't expected. They unlocked their own phone and began searching through an old conversation. Buried beneath months of messages was the screenshot they remembered. The ex admitted they had never understood its importance before tonight, but now the date, wording, and context suddenly mattered. They forwarded it directly to your special person. Stay till the end, because what happened after that was completely different from the reaction everyone had feared. Your special person didn't call back immediately. They read your words slowly, comparing them with the version they had been given years, or perhaps months, earlier. Then a new message appeared on the ex's screen. They were trying to explain. Why did nobody show me this? The room fell silent again. But beneath that sentence came another notification, this time addressed specif. The ex stared at that question for what felt like forever before finally admitting what they had remembered. Your second message had not disappeared by accident. At the time, someone had argued that showing it to your special person would only confuse them and reopen feelings they were supposedly trying to leave behind. That someone was the third party. But there was an even deeper reason. The ex remembered the third party saying that if your special person read your explanation, they might start questioning everything they had already been told about you. Those words sounded completely different now. Your special person heard the admission over the phone and asked one devastatingly simple question: so you knew their message could change my mind? The third party tried to explain, but every explanation created another contradiction. The psychic remained silent, watching the truth emerge without needing to add anything. Don't skip, because your special person's next move proved they weren't interested in being influenced by anyone anymore. Instead of demanding another explanation, your special person asked the ex to forward every screenshot, every date, and every conversation connected to you. Nothing cropped. Nothing summarized. Nothing interpreted. They wanted to see the entire sequence for themselves. Within minutes, pieces began arriving, and one overlooked detail immediately stood out. Your second message contained a reference to something only you and your special person would have understood, a private promise about being truthful even when circumstances became complicated. That line hit differently now because your special person remembered making the same promise to you. Suddenly, they understood that your message hadn't been an attempt to disappear. It had been an attempt to honor that promise while giving them space to make their own decision. Stay till the end. The psychic looked toward the third party and said their greatest miscalculation had been assuming silence meant your significance would fade. Instead, unanswered questions had preserved it. And now your special person was finally receiving the context that had been missing all along. Then something happened that nobody around the table had prepared for. Your special person ended the call, not because they were finished searching, but because they had made a decision about you. A few moments later, the ex received one final message: don't contact them for me. I'll do it myself. The third party immediately asked whether your special person really intended to reach you, but the ex didn't answer. The psychic picked up your photograph one last time and quietly returned it, saying there was nothing more she needed to tell them about who you were. Their own actions had already revealed why they were so unsettled by your presence. Something huge is waiting for you, because while the third party and the ex were still trying to understand what had just happened, your special person was somewhere else opening an old contact, staring at your name, and deciding what their first words should be after everything they had discovered. But before they could send anything, another forgotten message surfaced in the recovered conversation. One written by the ex themselves. And what it revealed could change not only how your special person sees the third party, but how they see their ex too. That forgotten message placed the ex directly inside the story they had been pretending to observe from the outside. Months earlier, they had written to the third party, "Don't let them see the full conversation yet. Give it time." The ex immediately tried to explain that sentence, insisting they had been afraid your special person would make an emotional decision before understanding everything. But your special person now saw the pattern clearly. First, your words had been shortened. Then your explanation had been withheld. Finally, the people around them had decided when, or whether, they deserved to see the complete truth. That realization hurt more than the original misunderstanding. Your special person had trusted these people to help them see clearly, yet those same people had quietly controlled which pieces they were allowed to see. Don't skip. Because when the psychic asked the X why they had been so determined to delay your message, the answer finally connected everything back to the photograph sitting on that table. The X admitted they had noticed something long before the third party ever suggested visiting a psychic. Whenever your special person spoke about you without outside influence, their tone changed. They remembered details. They questioned assumptions. They became less certain that walking away had been the right choice. The X feared that if your complete message reached them, those doubts would become impossible to dismiss. That was why they agreed to delay it. But what they hadn't expected was that your special person would eventually investigate everything independently. Now the very information meant to keep you distant was proving that you had tried to communicate honestly. The psychic looked at your photo and finally explained why her first reaction had been so intense. It wasn't because she had discovered some supernatural label attached to you. It was because two people had entered her room asking who you really were, while carrying evidence that they themselves had never allowed your special person to evaluate fairly. Stay till the end, because your special person was about to answer that question without anyone's help. Away from that room, your special person reopened your second message and read it again from beginning to end. This time there were no missing lines and no explanation whispered beside it. Just your words. And one sentence stood out above everything else: you had never asked them to choose you over anyone. You had simply asked them to remember what they personally knew about you before believing what others said. That sentence changed the entire emotional weight of the story. Your special person finally understood that reaching out wasn't about returning blindly to the past. It was about giving you the conversation you should have been allowed to have from the beginning. Something huge is waiting for you. Their fingers hovered over your name, and this time they began typing. But before sending the message, your special person received one last screenshot from the recovered thread. It showed exactly who first suggested taking your photograph to the psychic, and beside that suggestion was a sentence explaining what they desperately hoped the psychic would say about you. The name attached to it was unexpected. The name beside that suggestion wasn't the third party, it was the X. That single discovery rearranged everything your special person thought they understood about the psychic visit. The X had been acting surprised by each revelation, yet the recovered screenshot showed they had originally proposed bringing your photograph there. Even more revealing was the sentence beneath it: I need someone to tell them this person doesn't matter anymore. Suddenly, the purpose of that visit became painfully clear. The X hadn't been searching for information about you. They had been searching for reassurance about themselves. They wanted an outside voice to confirm that your place in your special person's heart had disappeared. Instead, the psychic had questioned why two people who claimed you were irrelevant were spending so much energy investigating you. Don't skip. Because your special person noticed something else in that screenshot, a timestamp proving the X suggested the psychic visit immediately after hearing that your old message had been recovered. That timing removed the final coincidence. The psychic visit had been arranged because the past was reopening, and both the ex and third party were worried about what your special person might discover. But their motives weren't identical. The third party feared being exposed for withholding context. The ex feared something more personal, that once your special person learned the complete truth, they might reconsider feelings the ex believed had been buried. And now the very trip intended to make you seem less significant had accomplished the opposite. The psychic had forced them to confront a question they had avoided from the beginning: why did your presence still carry so much weight when you weren't even in the room? Meanwhile, your special person stopped reading other people's explanations and returned to their own memories of you. Small conversations. Things you remembered. Moments when your actions matched your words. Stay till the end, because those memories led them to recognize one detail about you that neither the ex nor the third party had ever understood. You had never been competing with either of them. That was the revelation. While they treated your connection like something that had to be defeated, your special person remembered that you had repeatedly refused to pressure them. You had wanted clarity, not victory. And suddenly the question of who you really are had an answer far more powerful than anything the ex expected from the psychic. You were the person whose story had been discussed, edited, and interpreted by everyone except you, and yet the original evidence kept leading back toward your honesty. Your special person looked at the message they had started writing to you and erased the first draft. It sounded too casual for everything they now knew. They typed again, stopped, then finally chose words that acknowledged the truth directly. But seconds before pressing send, another notification appeared. The psychic had contacted the ex with one final observation from the visit, something she had noticed about your photograph but deliberately refused to reveal while the third party was still inside the room. And once the ex read it, they immediately realized your special person needed to know. The psychic's final observation wasn't a prediction, it was something written faintly along the edge of your photograph that nobody had noticed before. A short handwritten note included with the picture identified when it had originally been taken, and the date immediately caught the ex's attention. It was from before the misunderstanding, before the missing messages, before the third party became involved. The psychic explained that this mattered because the ex had repeatedly described you as someone who appeared only after problems had already begun. The photograph proved otherwise. You had been part of your special person's story earlier than the version everyone kept repeating. The ex checked old conversations and found another confirmation: your special person had spoken positively about you during that same period. No confusion. No suspicion. No complaints. Something had changed later. And now there was a clear point in the timeline where that change began. Don't skip, because your special person was about to discover what happened immediately before their opinion of you suddenly shifted. The ex forwarded the date, and your special person searched their old messages around that exact week. There it was. Just hours before they first began doubting you, the third party had sent them a carefully worded warning suggesting that you weren't being completely honest. At the time, it seemed harmless, almost protective. But viewed beside the complete timeline, it looked entirely different. The warning came before there was any evidence supporting it. Then, when your misunderstood conversation happened later, every ambiguous sentence was interpreted through suspicion that had already been planted. Your special person finally understood why they had believed the worst so quickly. They hadn't entered that conversation neutrally. Someone had already given them a conclusion and encouraged them to fit your words around it. Stay till the end, because the most surprising discovery wasn't that the warning existed. It was where the third party claimed to have gotten the information behind it. Your special person traced that claim back through another recovered exchange and found a reference to an unnamed person who supposedly knew you well. For months, nobody had questioned that source. Now your special person did. They asked the ex whether they knew who this mysterious person was, and the answer came faster than expected: there may never have been one. The ex remembered asking for a name back then and receiving excuses every time. Suddenly, the entire foundation of the original warning looked uncertain. Your special person stopped typing the message they had planned to send you. Before reaching out, they wanted one final answer. Not because they doubted you anymore, but because they wanted to understand exactly how far the story had been manipulated. Something huge is waiting for you, because they sent the third party a direct question: who was your source? Minutes passed without a response. Then one finally arrived. It contained no name. Instead, the third party wrote 6 words that changed the direction of everything: ask your ex. They already know. Those 6 words landed harder than every revelation before them. Your special person immediately contacted the ex and asked the question directly: what do you know about the source? This time, the ex couldn't hide behind confusion. After a long pause, they admitted there had been a conversation before the third party ever issued that warning, but there was no mysterious outsider who knew you personally. The so-called source had been created from assumptions, fragments of information, and one private opinion the ex had shared during an insecure moment. The third party had taken that uncertainty and presented it as reliable information. But the ex had allowed it to happen because the story benefited them too. Suddenly, your special person understood the entire chain. An opinion became a rumor. The rumor became a warning. The warning shaped how your words were interpreted. And then your attempt to explain yourself was hidden. Don't skip, because one question remained: what had the ex originally said about you that started everything? The answer was almost painfully simple. The ex admitted they had once said, "I think this person means more to you than you're admitting." That was it. There had been no secret evidence against you. No hidden revelation. The original conversation wasn't even about something you had done wrong. It was about the ex noticing how differently your special person reacted whenever your name appeared. The third party transformed that insecurity into suspicion, suggesting there must be something you were hiding. Over time, each retelling became more certain than the one before it until your special person eventually heard a version that sounded like established fact. Now they could see how easily perception had replaced reality. Stay till the end. Because after learning this, your special person returned to your photograph. Not the copy sitting with the psychic, but an older one they had quietly kept. Looking at it, they remembered exactly what they had felt before anyone told them what they were supposed to think about you. And that memory finally pushed them toward a decision. Your special person stopped investigating. They had enough. They opened your contact again and wrote a message without asking the ex, the third party, or anyone else what they should say. The first sentence was simple. I learned something I should have understood a long time ago. Then they explained that they had discovered missing context and wanted to hear directly from you, with no intermediaries and no assumptions. Their finger hovered over send, but before they touched the screen, the ex called one final time. Not to stop them. Not to defend themselves. The ex wanted to confess one remaining detail they believed your special person deserved to know before contacting you. Something huge is waiting for you, because this secret had nothing to do with another altered message. It concerned the very photograph taken to the psychic. According to the ex, that picture hadn't come from an old collection at all. Someone had obtained it recently, and when your special person heard exactly where it came from, they immediately asked, "Who gave you permission to take that?"